Terminator is one of those franchises where I think all fans of a certain genre should check it out. In this case, fans of action or science fiction. Similar to Star Wars, I knew of Terminator's existence growing up, but I didn't really care for it or know anything about its plot or characters. Then my dad rented Terminator 2, and since it looked like a fun robot action movie, I agreed to watch it, and I watched my first Terminator movie when I was 11. I had a blast watching it, but I wasn't really hooked on the series yet. Then a year later, I watched the first Terminator with my dad, and it was so much fun, I became obsessed with the series. However, I didn't have access to Terminator 3 and Salvation, but I watched a buttload of analysis videos explaining the convoluted narrative that was the Terminator series. So I was caught up in time for Genesis' release. My dad got it on Redbox and we watched it, and contrary to what everyone else was saying, I loved it, and I still do to this day. I thought it was a fun action movie with good pacing, decent characters, and a well-constructed plot, even though it was a little too convoluted for its own good. So with me watching those 3 movies while also doing a lot of digging on the 2 entries I missed, I was anticipating the 6th movie's release. Eventually, Terminator Dark Fate was announced to the world, and with James Cameron returning to help out with the writing, the future looked bright for the series. Not that bright though. So once Dark Fate released, I watched it, and I've never both simultaneously felt satisfied and unsatisfied at the same time. Just a fair warning, I don't think I've digested the movie yet, so I'm not sure this review will hold up in the future, but I do know how I feel right now. This isn't a bad movie, but it's easily my least favorite Terminator movie out of the first 2 in Genesis. But what about Dark Fate was promising, and what about it was disappointing? Well, in order to talk about this movie the way I want to talk about it, I'm gonna have to dive deep into spoilers, so this review will contain spoilers. If you still want to see the movie before hearing stuff about it, then do so before coming back to this review. With that said, let's begin. The plot of Terminator movies, with the exception of Terminator Salvation, has been the same in concept. A new Terminator has traveled back in time to kill someone important, so either a good guy or a good Terminator is assigned to travel back in time to protect said person. However, each installment has done something new or has an important plot thread to set up. The first Terminator introduced everything, the second Terminator introduced the whole good guy Terminator shtick, the third delved deeper in the details of Judgment Day, and the fifth introduced an overwhelming amount of new creative concepts, one of which being a bad John Connor. However, I'm not even kidding, with the exception of the new Terminator model, this movie is a hardcore reskin of Terminator 2. Basically, there's this girl who has a normal life, but after the Terminator kills her entire family, she now has to rely on 2 cool strangers who have to protect her because she's going to have a baby that will organize the resistance to counter Skynet. Oh, I'm sorry, I mean Legion. So, the conceiving an important child is a little bit like Terminator 1, so maybe it's not entirely like Terminator 2? Oh, never mind. It's revealed that she's the important resistance person. Yeah, this movie is really not original. However, maybe this could be like an episode 7 of Star Wars, where they're trying to bait fans with something familiar as an apology letter for the recent installments. However, I never got that. Don't make up having bad movies by giving us a repeat of a good one. You can have original elements, but I paid to see a new plot with new characters. And plus, I didn't even think the recent installments were bad. Speaking of characters, that is one positive aspect of the movie. These characters are all good. Grace is easily one of my favorite characters in the series. Seeing a cyborg, I know she's not called a cyborg, but come on, she's 100% a cyborg, for the first time in the series was pretty cool. She does a lot of cool stuff in action scenes. My favorite thing about her character is that she doesn't really take anyone's crap. However, the original butt-kicking female in the series, Sarah Connor, makes a return, and she's really good in this movie, like always. The T-800, or what am I calling him by his character name for? Arnold freaking Schwarzenegger makes yet another return in the series, and this is the best he's been since Terminator 2. Seeing him settle down, get a wife, a child, name himself Carl, and do drapes was the funniest thing in this movie. He has a lot of funny lines, but he's still the same butt-kicking Terminator we saw in the previous movies. However, I think Arnold's not coming back in future installments. I don't know, since Arnold is growing really old and he has the position of governor to worry about, I just don't see him coming back since the character got a decent send-off in this movie. However, I wish they would have done a little bit better than reusing his death scene from Terminator 3, but that's besides the point. However, you guys may have noticed I haven't mentioned Danny yet. Yeah, I was saving her for last because I'm sorry guys, but I don't like Danny. It's not mainly because she's so much of a reskin of John Connor that even the characters acknowledge it. She's just so bland. She barely has anything to say or do. Other than that, these characters are all pretty good and the actors and actresses do a great job. However, easily my favorite part of the movie is the new Terminator. I'm sorry T-800 fans, I'm sorry T-1000 fans, I'm sorry T-X fans, I'm sorry T-600 fans, and I'm sorry T-3000 fans, but the Rev 9 is easily my new favorite Terminator. Where do I start? First, I'll discuss its ability. The Rev 9 has an outer shell which is its human appearance that can morph at will, and his internal body looks like a traditional Terminator. However, the outer shell and the actual body has the ability to separate and fight as two units. That is easily the coolest ability out of any of these Terminators. Not only that, but I love this Terminator's behavior. He seems like he understands the most about how humans act and talk and can behave as such, which makes him more creepy. While the previous Terminator stuck out like a sore thumb, this one blends in perfectly with humans, which is more unsettling, since if this Terminator existed in real life, you'll never know he's a robot until he's too late. And plus, this unit has the same relentless and bloodthirsty attitude as the previous ones. I love this new Terminator, and props to the actor for playing it so well. As for the action, it's just as stunning as the previous Terminator movies. I noted on my trailer thoughts video that I thought the CGI looked awful. While some parts still look iffy, the CGI is good for the most part. So if you say screw the story and you just want some good action and effects, then you'll get what you paid for. In conclusion, Dark Fate isn't a bad movie, and it's nowhere as bad as you've heard online, but as a Terminator fan, I can't help but be disappointed a little. The characters are great for the most part, the new Terminator is sick, and the action and effects are promising. But plot-wise, this movie just feels unnecessary in the grand scheme of things. The plot is a complete reskin of the second installment, and not enough new ideas are introduced. I mentioned earlier that like Genesis, but one reason why I'll always respect it no matter what is because it tries so hard to be something new and introduce new concepts. This movie doesn't try to do any of that with the exception of the whole idea behind Grace. And don't give me that, but Skynet is defeated now and there's a new threat named Legion. Yeah, and the Empire is defeated and there's a new threat named the First Order. They're both the same thing. Speaking of Star Wars, this movie felt like episode 7 of Star Wars with how much it copied from previous installments, except I wasn't constantly pissed off during my viewing of Dark Fate since it didn't really break a lot of established rules. Overall, Dark Fate is a fun ride, but it doesn't give you a new experience. It's like if your friend got you a PlayStation 4 Pro for Christmas and your other friend got you a standard PS4. The standard PS4 is still a great console, but what do I need it for when I got the Pro version? I'm just gonna give Terminator Dark Fate a 3 out of 5. Maybe it's setting up for future movies and I'm going to appreciate it more. However, make sure to avoid ending up like Star Wars sequels. I already had a series I love to death ruined, so I don't need another one. Anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. If you haven't, please like and subscribe. And as always, I will see you guys next time. Peace everyone.